Orchinistas, welcome to the channel Forever Orchids. My name is Tracy, and today we are going to repot. I have a summer blooming cattleya here. This is SLC Newberry Pink Samba. This is my plant, so I have given it the cultivar name of Forever in honor of this channel. This is a plant that I got last year from Carter and Holmes down in South Carolina. I'll put up a picture of the bloom. Now, I have had this plant outside, and in one of my previous videos that was the summer grow space video, make sure you go back and watch that. I'll definitely put that in at the end of the video, and I can put it in the description. But this shows where this is growing outdoors, and I'll show you the flowers. And since it has finished flowering, this is the spike, not the spike, but here's a pseudobulb here that has finished blooming. And now what it is doing is it's pushing out a lot of new roots. And you see those new roots coming out there on the corner of that pot? This is the best time to repot your orchids. Had a little clip down in there. We're going to take that out. And I've got just a ton of new roots growing down in there. Little root tip popping up here. Let's take the tag out here. New roots here that are coming out. So it's really, really a great time to repot this. And I'm going to pot it up into a 6-inch terracotta pot. I've got a little bit of Ravalock to weight down the pot in case I will put this back outside, but even in the future, if I decide to put this one back outside during the summer, I've got a little weight in the pot. Orchids love lava rock. You can plant it in straight lava rock if we wanted to do that. I don't do that in my environment because I'm just a little concerned about my watering schedule and whether or not I can maintain the plant during the winter when I have to bring all of my plants back inside that I currently have outside in that outdoor grow space. So I'm going to plant this up in a bark mixture. This is Orchid bark. This is the Power Plus. I also have in the description a link so you can go and purchase this bark. It's very good. And I've got it with charcoal, a little bit of perlite, and some sphagnum moss. And I currently have it soaking in sea kelp extract. Your bark will, the first couple of waterings, it will repel water. And if you really want a successful repot, go ahead and soak your bark. So that way, each time you're watering, that plant is getting the nutrients that it needs to absorb. I've had plants that I have not done that to. I have just put them straight in the bark mixture, and they have really suffered. They've ended up losing all of their root system. The pseudobulbs have started desiccating on the cattleyas, and I'm watering anywhere from 10, 14 days, depending upon the actual orchid and what media it's planted in. Sometimes it's 3 weeks, sometimes it's 4 weeks. It just depends on, is it in a plastic pot? Is it in a clay pot? Is it straight bark? Is it all sphagnum moss? It just depends on the growing environment that you have as to how often you need to water. A lot of people will ask, oh my gosh, how often do I water? How often should I water? Okay, don't freak out about it. Just don't. Just water when your plants are dry. Your Phalaenopsis, if they're planted in straight sphagnum moss, don't water your plant until your sphagnum moss dries out. That's what I usually do. I keep a record of all of my plants and how often I water them in an app. Just the Notes app in your Apple phone is what I use, and it works out very well for me. Now, what I did not get, oh, you know what? In front of me, I have just a little decorative pot here, and that is what I'm going to dump the media, this old media, into as we take this plant out here. Okay. And you know what? It looks to me like there is some tree fern in this mixture that it was planted in. I have some tree fern. I might grab some of that and put it in the mix. that I'm going to be planting this new pot in. Now, I haven't found the larger perlite pieces. Mine are much smaller. I want to be on the lookout though for that. And you know what? If anybody that's watching this, if they know where I can get the coarse perlite, I would appreciate if you would put in the comments a link for me to go ahead and get some of that. What I have, I bought at a local gardening store, and it's just really, really small perlite. And I'd really like to have some of the larger. Okay, now I think we've got a lot of the bark out. You don't have to get out every piece of bark. And in doing this, some of the old roots that are nice and mushy, and the vellum is desiccated, mushy, died, dead roots, we're going to cut those off. We don't, and some of them are just coming right off as I pull out, as you can see, pull out some of this bark here. We're just going to try to get as much of it out as we can. If some of it is stuck to your roots, that's okay. That's perfectly fine. If you want to make sure that you get all of the bark out, then what you're going to want to do is wash your plant. When you're done, you can pressure wash lightly your orchid. Now, I didn't soak this. This was watered. It's been outside. This was watered, I think, yesterday morning. So some of the center was still damp. Some of the other pieces of bark are dry, and the roots are still attached to them. If I wanted to go ahead and soak this orchid here, then that would help get the bark off of all of these roots here. Okay. Now, alrighty, I am going to grab my propane torch, my little butane torch. I'm going to grab that, and I will sterilize my tools so we can cut some of these dead roots off here. And then we are going to pot this little princess up here. Gorgeous, gorgeous little pink cattleya. And I'm going to get some tree fern. Because I have some, because this was planted in tree fern, it's not going to hurt. Tree fern doesn't break down as fast as bark does. And the plant is actually used to bark, perlite, and tree fern. So I'm going to plant it back in as close to the same media as I can. And since I have some tree fern, then I'm just going to add it to my mixture right here. I've got my bag of tree fern. This is New Zealand tree fern. It's a soft tropical substrate. And this is like a tree fern fiber. It's just soft tropical terrarium substrate is all this says. And you'll see that it's very fine. You see that here? I'm just going to mix some of that in there. It didn't appear to be a whole lot of tree fern. Okay. Close my bag back up here. Set that off to the side. And just got a little spoon here. Because I've got some water, some sea kelp extract down in here, mixed in with the water and letting this soak. I'm just going to use the spoon here and mix this up real good. Then I can keep my hands as clean until the very end. Okay, now got my butane torch here and my little pruning scissors here, little pruning shears. And I'm just going to light the torch and give a good swipe over all of the blades. I don't have to get them red hot. You don't need to do that. What you're doing here is whatever orchid I used this on last could have fungus. It could have had a virus on it. So I'm going to sterilize the tools here. And also, now that they're hot, any cut that I make, I'm going to cauterize that area, that wound. And I'm just going to get in here and find these roots here that are really basically have no vellum on it. Now see, look at this one here. That's pretty dry. Cut that one off here. And this is here pretty dry. I'm looking at this really good just to make sure on this root coming out here that none of this had any new growth on it. I've left this has been some aerial roots that were hanging on the outside of the pot, and I've left them because I haven't done anything with this plant since I got it. Didn't repot it. And sometimes I don't want to go crazy on cutting the roots off, because it is highly possible that the root is still good and it's just the vellum that has dried up and died back. So I really don't want to stress the orchid out any more than I have to. Let's see here. See, here's a new root tip here. This root here was kind of flat, looked kind of gnarly, but it has got root tips growing on it. So I don't want to cut that. All of this I'm a little concerned about cutting, because I'm afraid that that is an awful lot of roots that I just cut off that might have still been good. But that's all I'm going to cut. And I will cut this one here. One more that just looked like a string. Okay. Oops. That's it. That's all I'm going to cut. Okay. Let me show you here. Rhizome. If you hear the word rhizome, that is this portion of the plant here. See this curving, but you see it's kind of a linear structure at the base here, and all of the pseudobulbs are coming up off of that. That's your rhizome. Down here is where this was cut from an original plant, a mother plant, if you want to call it that. So this is a division from the original plant, and the pseudobulbs have just continued to grow. So currently, this was my newest growth. So my orchid is growing this direction. So I want to make sure when I put it in the pot that I give this growth here the most room before I get to the other side of the pot. Now, see how much room I've got for this growth here? So these new bulbs, these new root tips here are going to be able to grow down into the pot, and it's going to have a lot of growth space. Alrighty, now let's get some media here. This is where we're going to get messy because this is wet. You can wear gloves if you want to. Doesn't bother me any. So I'm just going to put a little bit down here in the bottom because I've got some space here with my roots. So I want to give them a little bit of room. Now, I'm also keeping this new growth and the rhizome. Yes, the rhizome started here and it's coming up and growing. So I'm going to focus on this portion of the rhizome. And I want to make sure that that is slightly above the rim of the pot. Oh, excuse me, after sneezing. And I'm going to hold with my hand my plant and start filling in the bark underneath that mass of roots. Just taking my fingers and moving it underneath, keeping the plant still, and pushing it from one side underneath those roots and into those roots. Now I'm going to switch hands and get some down over here under this portion of the roots. Put a little bit around to the back here. And be mindful too when you're doing this to watch those little root tips. You don't want to break any off. If you do, don't stress about it. These plants are very forgiving. And they'll grow new root tips. They'll grow new roots as long as you're doing this within the time frame that the plant is in active growth. That's why it's so important when you have new roots coming out. And that's why we tell you that it's okay to plant your plant, repot it, because those new root tips, that plant is in active growth and it will recover if you accidentally break off a root tip. If you accidentally break off a new growth, a new pseudobulb, as long as there's another eye, it's called an eye, it's a growth point and we call it an eye. As long as you have that, then your plant will recover. Okay, got a lot of water coming out onto my desk here. Got just a little bit more media to put in along this side over here. That I can get down in here. Now I'm going to pack it around the edge, being mindful of those root tips. I want these new root tips right here. I want them to start growing down into the media. And I can still kind of push my plant back a little bit. Give it some more room here. And this is probably about all the bark I'm going to get into this pot here. And if need be, you always want to make sure that your plant is secure in your pot. If you do this here and you get a lot of movement in your plant, you see, the roots haven't taken hold, these new ones especially. So what I'm going to do is put a rhizome clip, and we took one out. I don't know what I did with it right now. Laid it somewhere, so I'll have to get a new one. But we're going to put a rhizome clip onto the plant and onto the pot. And this will help stabilize the plant until those roots can grow down into the pot and stabilize the plant all on its own. Okay, so let me grab, should have got that ahead of time. Should have got all my supplies ahead of time. Here is that rhizome clip. Now, this rhizome clip is designed for a plastic pot, and it was designed for a much smaller pot. So it is not going to fit on the outside of my clay pot and cover the rhizome of my plant here. So let me grab a longer one of those. And again, if you need some of these rhizome clips, I have those down. They'll be down in the description under the products that I use, and you'll be able to just go right to Amazon and purchase them. I purchased them. I've got a set in there with different sizes in there for the different pots. So let me go and grab a rhizome clip, and I will show you how to put one of those on. I just went ahead and grabbed all the different sizes of rhizome clips that I have. So you've got the 8-inch pot in the little set. You've got a 6-inch pot and a 4-inch pot. So what I'm going to do is use a 6-inch, because this is a 6-inch pot. I'm going to grab one of these rhizome clips here that's a 6-inch. Now, you want to determine where on your plant you want to put the clip. I could easily put it right here because I've got a good space there with the rhizome, or I could try to come into this pseudobulb here and try to come in between that pseudobulb there. Now the outside here, the way it is shaped, this goes over the lip of the pot, and this portion here will come down and clip under the lip of the terracotta pot. So let me figure out where I want this to go. Now, one of the things that I like to do, because I am potting up my rhizome above the rim, then a lot of times I don't want to use the straightness, if that makes any sense, and push down. Then I'm pushing the plant really far down into the pot and getting, sometimes that rhizome is then getting lowered more than I would like. See what's happening here? As I push down, my plant is pushing down into the media a little bit tighter. I like to just give me a slight bend like this into my rhizome clip here. And then I can start pushing it down. I want to make sure this portion here goes on the inside of your pot. Oops. And if need be, if you get a lot of resistance, like I'm getting here, oops, wait, I think I got it. Okay, we got it. I might take it off now, but this is the way it's supposed to go, and I may take it off because this is lifted up, and I would like to just have that go more down into the bark, into the media. So I'm going to bend this here a little bit more. Sometimes you have to get your pliers and bend it. Get our pliers here, bend this down a little bit, go back, and then that way that will go down into the media and it won't be sticking out. Now I'm adjusting this, my bend here, based on what the plant is giving me here. Okay, and that is where I'm going to leave it. Get my water. And now I'm a lot more secure in the pot. We've got just the top of the pseudobulbs moving, but we don't have the rhizome moving. Your orchids grow in, the majority of them are epiphytic, and they grow in trees. When they attach themselves to the trees, they are swaying with the tree, but, you know, and the breeze is blowing them. But the rhizome itself, those roots have attached to that tree. They're secure, and your plant really, really wants to feel secure. That's the purpose of the rhizome clips, is to let this newly potted plant feel secure in its new environment, and it will continue to grow. I have seen plants in my own collection that I have put in a plastic pot. I have put them in a bark mixture, and every time I pick the plant up out of its decorative container, take it to water, and put it back, my plant was rocking. And the new growth was coming out very small, very spindly, and the plant just wasn't happy. And it wasn't pushing out good new roots, and it was losing its roots. And I've got a couple more plants like that that I need to repot. But it's just so important for your orchids to feel secure. It may sound silly, but it's really important. Last thing I'm going to do is take the tag here. I'm going to put on the back of the tag that I repotted. And this is July of 2024. And I'm going to put that down. Put my tag here towards the back so that I don't have to worry about any new growth coming out. Now I have these little tags here that I created with a picture of the bloom, and I laminated it. And then I also have these little picture clips here that are in the description that you can get off of Amazon as well. I stick that down in there, and then this reminds me of what this bloom looks like. And especially I put these two in my Phalaenopsis. Phalaenopsis, when they're growing, they all look the same. And I like to just figure out when they're not in bloom, what's what. And so anyway, that is what I do. Now, this is all we need to do on this pot here. Now, because I soaked the bark in sea kelp extract, these roots are going to be able to soak up some of that, and that is going to help the plant not be so stressed that it's now been unpotted, and we've cut off some dead roots, we've taken all the media away from it, and we've shocked the plant. So that sea kelp is going to help it tremendously. I fully believe in sea kelp extract, that really helps your plants. I also have some down in the description that you can purchase off of Amazon and use that. Mix it up according to the directions. What I do with mine is I will, whenever I repot, whenever I bring in a new plant into the environment, or I have a plant that is just stalled, it should be growing, but it's not. It's just sitting there. Or maybe it should be blooming and it's not. It's just sitting there. I'll give it some sea kelp extract. I will only do this 3 waterings in a row. I will not do it more than that. You can damage the plant by giving it too much, too long of a period. Okay, I have rambled and I have talked way too much while we have repotted this. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, please feel free to put those down in the comments section under this video. I will respond to you. And until next time, guys, happy orchid growing. Bye.